Sanchez. I'm doing this for my communications class. And 1, and 2. Okay.
Nice. And here is our audience. Hi, everybody.
Who is the first person that comes to mind when thinking about people who affected the course of history? I'm sure most of you know that John Fitzgerald Kennedy was our 35th president, but how much do you know about the many ways he affected history? Having spent the better part of the past few weeks researching that very topic, I believe I now have a firm grasp on the answer. My goal today will not be to persuade you in any way, but simply to explain how JFK affected our history. I will be explaining how he affected history through his words, his actions, and his death. I'm going to begin by explaining how he affected history through his words. Kennedy made many memorable speeches, so I will only be describing 2 of them. The first speech is his address at the Rice University on the nation's space efforts on September 12, 1962. In the speech, he stated, "We go to the moon." This started a competition between the United States and the Soviet Union to be the first to land on the moon. We refer to this as the space race. America won this race when Apollo 11 landed on the moon on July 20th, 1969. Another one of his most influential speeches was his inaugural address. He made this speech when he took the oath of office. In this speech, Kennedy stated, "And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country." This brought the potentiality to change America to each individual citizen. This greatly impacted history because people who once thought they had no influence began to realize that they did. Now that I've described how Kennedy affected history through his words, I will move on to how he did so through his actions. Kennedy accomplished so much through his time as president, so today I will only be describing 2 of his most influential actions. One of Kennedy's first actions as president was to establish the Peace Corps through executive order on March 1st, 1961. The Peace Corps is an organization that sends volunteers into developing countries. According to an article by U.S. News staff, Kennedy had hoped for 500 or more volunteers. However, by 1966, only 5 years later, enrollment was over 15,000 volunteers, reaching 52 countries. So not only did Kennedy inspire goodwill in the young people of America, but he provided aid to thousands of people in developing countries. One of Kennedy's next actions was to assist in ending the Cuban Missile Crisis. When Kennedy became aware of the Soviet missile bases in Cuba, he called for Cuba to be put under naval quarantine. According to an article called JFK's Address on Cuban Missile Crisis Shocks the Nation, it explains that Kennedy would not stop short of military action to end what he called a clandestine, reckless, and provocative threat to world peace. The Soviet Union leader offered Kennedy a trade, claiming that he would dismantle the weapons site if the United States pledged to not invade Cuba. Bravely, not only did Kennedy accept this offer, but he went a step further and decided to remove all nuclear missiles from Turkey. In doing so, Kennedy effectively ended the Cuban Missile Crisis and prevented a potential disaster to the United States. This brings me to my last point. Now that I have described how Kennedy affected history through his words and his actions, I will describe how he affected history through his death. Kennedy was assassinated on November 22nd, 1963, changing America in many ways. I will be describing 2 of those ways. In an article titled 5 Ways JFK's Assassination Changed America Forever, John Giocars claims that Kennedy's death changed the way many people obtain news, from newspapers to television. This is due to the uninterrupted televised news event following his death, and is still true to this day. His death also greatly impacted American politics. When Kennedy died, Vice President Johnson took his place. Johnson used the national sense of sympathy to put through both the Civil and Voting Rights Acts. These acts aided in ending the racial oh my goodness, this is awful.
I can edit it.
Just do that part
I
again.
can't edit it.
No, that's all right. Just go on.
Okay. These acts aided in ending racial segregation and took great strides in protecting black voters. Therefore, the civil rights legislation Kennedy could not put through during his life, he put through in his death. In conclusion, John Fitzgerald Kennedy changed history through his words, his actions, and his death. Although his time as president was cut short, his accomplishments are still prevalent today. And even through his death, he continues to inspire people all across America. So remember, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country.
Good job, Hannah.